Om Nityo Nityanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kamam Tamatmastam Yenu Pashanti Diraha Desham Shanti Shashvati Netaresham. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. That one, the eternal among non-eternal things, the intelligence of the most intelligent ones, who, though ever one, fulfills the desires of the many. That one, the wise beings realize as dwelling in their own self. To them belong peace, and to none else. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Brahmanandam Paramasukadam Kevalam Gyanamurtim Dvandvaititam Gagna Sadrisham Tattvama Shadilaksham Ekam Nityam Vimlamachalam Sarvadi Sakshibhutam Bhavatitam Trigunarahitam Sadgurum Tanamami. We salute the leader of our souls, through whose grace our ignorance is dispelled, who is beyond good and bad, pleasure and pain, life and death, and all other pairs of opposites. We recognize that one as the only witness to the changing phenomena of this universe. May we, through that grace, go beyond darkness and delusion, and realize the truth in this very life. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karvavahai Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking consciousness. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. So, here on this fine afternoon, we meet after a 5 or 6 week long break while I was on the mainland at the SRV ashrams in San Francisco and Oregon, where I saw some of you there traveling a long distance across the ocean, jumping the ocean like Hanuman did in the ancient times to save Sita and to please his beloved Sri Ram. So, metaphorically speaking, we do that quite often in this lifetime, and all symbolic of taking this leap or this bound of great faith in overcoming the root ignorance which exists at the foundation of the human mind, the dual human mind called manas. Manasyatvam is a good thing, that is a human birth. You need that first and foremost in order to realize this Atman within, is the word which Vedanta uses for the eternal soul, the immortal soul, which abides in all pervasive fashion, in and throughout everything, but which is not a thing, or an object, or an energy, or a thought. It transcends time and space, outdoes and outstrips all the worlds in space and time, is beyond causation, called karma, transcendent of reincarnation, And it was that about which the great Advaitin, or non-dualist, Sri Shankaracharya said, Namrit Jorna Shanka Name Jati Beda, Pita Naiva Me Naiva Mata Janma. I have no death, because not even a birth have I. I have no father, no mother. I am the eternal principle, Atman. I am Shiva, I am Shiva. So with words like that, the Indian seers, since time out of mind, have been speaking about this eternal nature, called Brahman when it's outside of the five sheaths, that is, those coverings which act as false superimpositions over the Atman, body, energy, mind, thought, and ego. Those are all components of the non-self, which change constantly, which are impermanent, about which we just chanted, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. That one eternal being is the eternal among the non-eternal. Nitya Anitya, Vastu Viveka, as Vedanta says. Nitya means the eternal, Anitya means the non-eternal. And you must, Vastu Viveka, you must know the difference between the two. Vedanta says, if you know that difference between the changing and the unchanging, then you're a candidate for the highest enlightenment. In our tradition called Nirvikalpa, beyond the tendency of imaginings, fantasies, hopes, false projections, even mixed projections, which the gods and goddesses and the ancestors and the human beings are all engaging in this great mind, which is either the doorway to hell or the gateway to heaven. It's up to the soul to choose how it wants to use this mind. Or as my teacher's teacher, Sri Sharda Devi, Sri Ramakrishna's wife, called the Holy Mother, said, you must be very careful with this mind, because it's that by which you will usher yourself into the presence of Brahman. It's very important to us at this stage, this embodied stage of our evolution, or our so-called evolution, as Vedanta would say, because when you speak in terms of good and bad and life and death and pleasure and pain and other pairs of opposites, you're speaking on a relative level, no doubt. It's very hard to speak at all on the non-dual level. That's why philosophers in India, we use the term more for those who show us the truth and show us the way, rather than those who just argue or debate about the existence of reality or not. Reality is existence. So it's not a matter of argumentation. As she said again, is Brahman anything you can talk and barter about like you would do with greens and fish in a marketplace? It's an undeniable reality. It's that which the fish all got together at the bottom of the sea to discuss when they said, does water really exist or not? Let's hold a great debate. And so they floated in the stuff and debated whether or not God existed, water existed or not. So in that same way, philosophers get together and debate about the existence of divine reality, when it's that power which is causing the mind to think, conceive, and enter into profound discourses, such as the one I'd like to present you today, because in this series of discourses coming up, some 4 or 5 weeks we have before the next break, every Sunday we'll speak about the non-dual Advaita Vedanta. Now, in the past, we've had a series of classes on Tantra. We've had retreats and classes on the Yoga Darshana of Patanjali, the 8-limbed yoga. We've studied the Samkhya of Lord Kapila with its 25 cosmic principles, or 24 if you want to put it in contemporary form. All of these that are listed here, we've had various classes and series of classes and retreats on them. And now it's time to approach again, in cyclic fashion, since everything is cyclic, this non-dual substratum or foundation that's at the basis of all of them. So we come down necessarily to a qualified non-dualistic level in order to speak about it, to point to it. It was that Lord Buddha indicated when he pointed towards the moon and everyone looked at his finger. And he said, no, look where I'm pointing. So in that way, the ignorant human mind is rather like the retriever. You point towards the fallen duck in the lake and the retriever looks at your finger and it hasn't learned yet to dive into the water and go fetch. In the same way, the human soul hasn't learned yet to fetch the meaning of the words which great souls like Christ and Buddha and Krishna and others uttered, and use them to beat a swift path towards that divine reality, which is within, as they say. Kingdoms of heaven are within you. Now, divine reality is more a state of mind in that sense than it is a person or a personality. However, there are persons and people who have realized non-dual reality, and they make the best reflectors, the best doorways. You get to the Father through the Son, for instance. So if we listen closely to the import of these great teachings, then we find that they have a tendency towards impacting us in such a way that they stop the outward movement of the senses and the outward going tendencies of the human mind, and through the force of mere words affect us profoundly. Here's some examples of words that explain. Like ajaha, unborn. There's what I started off in the beginning quoting. Namrit jorna shanka name jati beda. Shankara says, death nor fear I have none, nor any distinction of caste. Mother, father, nor mother, not even a birth have I. So namritjor nashanka name jati beda. Mritjor is death. I have no death. I have no fear. And I have no distinction of caste. I have no father, I have no mother, not even a birth have I. That's called the Nirvana Shatkam, verse 5 of Shankara's composition. So he wasn't creating songs and formulating verses and words for Mayic purposes. He was doing it to convey to you what the nature, true nature of yourself is. He wants you to concentrate just on that and leave these other things aside. How did Christ say that? Get thee behind me. He wasn't talking about a red man with the horns and a pitchfork. He was talking about all the devilish things in the mind. Get thee behind me. Let me concentrate with an eye that's been made single on this one profound truth of identification with my true nature. That is, if I were to try and bring God and man together, I would already be starting on a misfiance, wouldn't I? God and man were never separated in the first place. And that's what Vivekananda told us when he brought us the Advaita Vedanta in 1893. He said, oh, I see, you haven't realized that mankind is just God walking around on two legs. You're starting on the wrong premise. You've been moving along the wrong trajectory for hundreds of years, for centuries in Europe and America, by starting on the premise that man is originally sinful when man is really inherently perfect. You've been identifying with his body and with his dual mind, with his stunted intellect, with his uninformed intelligence. But you've never seen his Atman. You see, that Atman. So when you say unborn, then you talk about something that's eternally perfect. Or if you say stanuhu, oh, did I have the right chart? Yes, stanuhu, stable. Stable. Ashtavakra says, adoration to myself, impervious to decay, who outlasts even the dissolution of the universe, from Brahma down to a blade of grass. Salutations to myself. Salutations to my own true nature. In the Tantras they say, you are the darling of your own worship. You are the darling of your own worship. Why are you worshiping out and about? Angels and children and sky and nature and this and that. You yourself are the object of your own worship. So I adore myself, my Atman, the true self in all beings. You would be wise to start first with your own self and realize, and then go out and look for it after that in others. Put your own mask on first before helping others, as they say when you get in the airline. So make sure you get plenty of good oxygen to breathe. That is the air of rarefied heights, the Advaita Vedanta. Make sure you hear that first. Then you can go out and see it among others. If you don't follow that simple rule, then you begin looking for God in all the wrong places. And you're not qualified, you're not ready yet to see God in others. Therefore, you'll fail miserably and you'll suffer greatly. The words of a selfish lover are poison. I've suffered at their anguish touch many a time. That's how Ramprasad puts it in one of his beautiful poems. See, the words of a selfish lover are poisonous. So you must find first that true love, the beloved. There's only one of those, and that's yourself. Adoration to myself, he says. That's Ashtavakra, means bent in 8 places. So he was cursed by his father when he was in the womb. His father was speaking some Sanskrit phrases, and a voice came out of his mother's womb and said, "Father, you're mispronouncing those. Get a teacher." So the father became angry and said, "I curse you. You'll be born twisted, and I'll name you Ashtavakra." So he was born bent in 8 places. Ashta means 8. And so then basically his father was sent to prison eventually, and Ashtavakra saved his father from prison, and his father removed the curse, and Ashtavakra straightened up. So it's all very symbolically put in sense of being born in a womb, having a body, destroying the karmas of oneself and one's other, and straightening up. You see, his whole life was a metaphor for the world and how to transcend it. In fact, Ashtavakra Samhita was one of the few books that Sri Ramakrishna kept near him. Ashtavakra Samhita. He had Swami Vivekananda read from it when he was just a young child, a young teenage boy. That's a non-dual scripture, Ashtavakra Samhita. All the fat trimmed off. It's pure essence. There's not one thing in every one of those verses that doesn't apply to the unification of God and mankind, the deep connection between God and mankind. Connection, again, would be a qualified way of saying it. The innate, intrinsic oneness of God and mankind, in which no separation ever occurs. So, Ajaha, unborn, and Stanu, stable, define the Atman. They're words that help define the Atman, help define the undefinable. Nityaha, absolute or eternal. That's why I chanted this morning, or this afternoon when we started the class, Nityo Nityanam Chaitanas Chaitananam. That is Nityo Nityana, Nitya Anitya. See, basically, it is the eternal among all non-eternal things. Everything that changes and passes, it's the substratum upon which that change and passage is taking place. So if you're going from heaven to earth to hell, you haven't seen the witness that's seeing you go from heaven to earth to hell. That's you. Is seeing your dream of earth, is seeing your dream of heaven, is seeing your dream of birth, is seeing your dream of death. That's you. That's your true nature. You haven't turned your face to the original yet. You're still moving about, seeing change. See? So when you become stable, sthanuhu, and when you become ajaha, when you know you're unborn, like Shankara says, I have no father and no mother, that's just a dream of mine, then you're beginning to approach that great self within, which is ekriya. It's not a matter of birth and death, it's a matter of being unborn. It's not a matter of coming and going, it's a matter of being eternally stable. So coming and going are just dreams that the great soul is projecting. Dreams of the Atman. And it'll have to take on 5 sheaths in order to fulfill those dreams, or it'll have to turn its 5 elements into its 5 desires in order to do that. Whatever is happening is all under the power of the word by that one indivisible self. And indivisible will come up here in a minute. So the quote there by Vivekananda, if you have known Atman as the one existence, and that nothing else exists, for whom, for what desire do you trouble yourself? If you have known Atman as the one indivisible presence in you, what are you doing running around troubling yourself amongst the many? You are the one in the many. So stop, become stable, become silent, realize yourself as unborn and eternal. This is the house that Jack built, spiritually speaking. See? Understand? The house that Jack built. If you go through all of these, then you'll just retrace them. See? Or you could say, the first day of Christmas, my true love gave to me. See? My true love is God. He gave me the unborn. He told me I was unborn. And then the second day of Christmas, he told me I was stable. The third day of Christmas, he told me I was... So you can... The house that Jack built, or the house of cards that Maya constructed, you just remember these are Advaitic axioms. These are the only way in which truth can be explained to you in words. Because everything else you've ever heard in your life is a combination, an admixture of good and bad, pleasure and pain, life and death, or has been a combination of knowledge and ignorance. But when you came to your teacher and you heard these words, you said, that's the closest I ever came to truth via sound, via vibration of any kind. And it'll also help me to become vibrationless. If yoga chitta vritti nirodha is how the father of yoga told me in the second sutra, that you get into union with Brahman by destroying nirodha, the chitta vrittis, the vibrations of your mind. You get back into the unborn condition after you've become born, or after you've dreamed yourself to be born, and you've dreamed yourself to die. That's what Krishna tells Arjuna in the Gita. Basically, everything that's born will die, and everything that's died will become born again. Where's the grief in this? There's one philosophy you can take, but you should really know that you're unborn. It's only when people don't understand that they're unborn that they engage in the dream of life and death. See? And if they do engage in the dream of life and death, then you should just say, there's no problem there, because that too is just eternal. Birth and death going on in cycles happens eternally. But it's all happening in a dream. If you want to put it philosophically, Samkhya could say there are 3 powers: creation, preservation, and destruction. But creation, preservation, and destruction is a tempest in a teapot that's being held inside of 2 hands called projection and withdrawal. Creation, preservation, and destruction of worlds of name and form and time and space that go on for aeons in eternal cycles that Buddha called samsara and that we call Maya are just being held in these 2 hands called the power to project and the power to withdraw. And those 2 hands belong to Divine Mother. We call her Shakti. So in her hands, the tempest in the teapot is going on, this storm. this raging storm of birth, life, and death, of projection, sustenance and withdrawal, of creation, preservation, and destruction is going on constantly in cycles. And you're the one that's holding it. Now open your eye and see. See what you're doing. See how you come out of deep sleep, begin to dream, and then enter the waking state. And give up the waking state, go back into dream tonight, and go into deep sleep. It's all called form and formlessness. First you project it, then you sustain it, then you withdraw it. And then you come back out of withdrawal, you sustain it again, and you project it. And it's all going on in constant cycles. Now that you've seen it, give it up. Disengage, withdraw, detach, transcend. And once you've done that and you've seen it all to be a dream, then you can have 14 lifetimes as a bodhisattva like Dalai Lama did. You can go up and down the amber stairs of birth and death like Sri Aurobindo did. You can be born as an eternally perfect soul once in every 1,000 years, as Swami Vivekananda did. Or Ramana Maharshi, or any other great soul you want to cite who has mastered birth and death, and is now just simply appearing, playing for a while, and disappearing like a great wave on an ocean. That's what the ocean's telling you. You have such a nice ocean view here at your SRV Hawaii Association, you see. And you look out and you see the ocean every day, so you should see how many projections and withdrawals are happening on top of the great ocean of consciousness. But you're the one looking on, aren't you? You're seeing them. You're the witness. Sakshi Bhutam. The witness of all phenomena. That's you. Your true nature. So you're also Purnaha, ancient. The Upanishad says, "To that timeless Brahman be thou devoted, through the primal and ancient cause called Atman, the eternal soul." Call it Buddha nature, if you want, or Tathagata-garbha, or Pragyaparam. Lord Buddha used that expression, Pragyaparam, that is the supreme consciousness, the supreme intelligence. He was very much into intelligence because his name means intelligence, Buddha. It means intelligence. Buddhi is intelligence. It's the first thing out the gate, like I said. It's the first vibration. The word shines with intelligence. Om shines with intelligence. Manifesting as millions of worlds. That's just a quote out of one of Ram Prasad's. Earth, air, fire, water, and ether are the manifestations of intelligence that form into millions and billions of worlds as they move down the spectrum. Was it Shelley, the poet Shelley, said that these great shining, the mind is like a many-colored dome, he says, shining with the light of intelligence. The white light of reality passes through the many-colored dome of the mind and turns into billions of colors. Those colors are like worlds. And they stain the pure white light of reality, he says. They stain it. The pure white light of reality takes on the spectrum of colors. It's sort of like saying the Shambhala worlds in one school of Buddhism. See, the different rainbow worlds. If you can't make Buddha nature, then you fall into the rainbow worlds and you take a seat there, you take a birth there. It's like you've taken a seat here. So practice while you're living, dissolving yourself into Buddha nature, into that light, however you want to put it. Chit Jyoti, the light of consciousness or intelligence. Practice in meditation, blending. Be a hailstone, fall into an ocean, dissolve there, and reconstruct. It's all under the power of your own intelligence. And that intelligence is timeless, Purnaha. It's also achala, immovable. The Ishavasha Upanishad says, the self is unmoving. It is faster than mind. Having preceded the mind, it transcends the senses. It outstrips all that runs. You say, I'm going to go look for God, you could say. But even before you had the thought, I'm going to look for God, God was already there. That's how fast. Swiftest of the swift. Higher than the highest, lower than the lowest, slower than the slowest, faster than the fastest. It outstrips all that runs. Why? Because it's eternal, it's all-pervasive, it's timeless. You get into time, then you suffer the delusion of I'm going to look for something, you see. But if you're outside of time, you're already that. So, akala, you're timeless. And achala, you're immovable. You're the underlying substratum. So I used to say, for instance, faster than the speed of sound is the speed of light. Faster than the speed of light is the speed of thought. But faster than the speed of thought is Atman. It's free of thought. It doesn't vibrate like thought does. And it doesn't run the risk of having positive and negative thought. God has been fooling us, Vivekananda said. He's brainless, but he's been fooling us with these little brains. Next time I won't be caught napping, he says. Precious words. Atman is sanatanaha. What does sanat mean? Eternal, because he knows, because he's named that. He took it as his name, Sanat. Sanatana Dharma. You see, India's Sanatana Dharma contains all of that. It's eternal. The Katha Upanishad says, the wise do not grieve, having known the bodiless, all-pervading Supreme Atman that dwells in impermanent bodies. Nityo Nityanam, it's the eternal among non-eternal things. Chaitanas Chaitananam, it's the intelligence of the most intelligent ones. So it's the permanent which dwells in all impermanent things. It's the essence in all non-essential changing. It's the changelessness in all changing things. That's what you want to seek. That's what you want to spy. That's what you want to realize. Stable, emotion, immovable, stanu, unborn. You're getting the gist of this, I hope. These are one-word mantrams. You've always wanted to know what God is. I keep telling you what it is. It's in a word. One word particularly. Take one word. It's an atom in the sun of knowledge, as the Sufis say. It's an atom in the sun of knowledge. And did you know that these knowledge samadhis contain billions of atoms? And when you see them all inside of yourself, you'll get struck dumb. And you lose yourself in an ocean of wisdom. It's called Gyanakasha. You know the joke, 3 men walked into a bar one day? There's jokes that start off with that line. So 3 men walked into a Gyanakasha one day. Walked into a realm of wisdom. Their names were Buddha, Vedavyas, and Patanjali. The father of yoga, the father of Buddhism, the father of Vedanta. And they met the father of Samkhya there, whose great teachings filled all 3 philosophies. His name was Lord Kapila. The philosophy was named Sankhya. So when they met him, they said, "Thank you very much." That's 3 men walked into a Gyanakasha. That's a Vedic joke. That's an original. Thank you very much. Avikaryaha, inactive. you should probably, if you want to know God, you should probably emulate God. And you'd have to know that God was unborn and stable and all that. You'd also have to know God was immovable, doesn't move. So you're going to have to become still. Your body can become still in asana. That would be the first step for the hatha yogis. Give up all these asanas and just get ekasana. See, enough of twisting your body into pretzel shapes. Just sit like this. Get one asana. That's the whole point. And when you can sit like this for an hour, 2 hours, 3 hours, 8 hours, then your body will have become still and your body is beginning to emulate or simulate what Brahman is like. But then you're going to have to go to the prana, right? Don't huff and puff, huff and puff, huff and puff all the time. A bellows never gets enlightenment. See, it takes in air and pumps out air and takes in air, but does a bellows ever get enlightened? No. So finally your breath is going to have to become still. When you get the in-breath the same as the held breath, the same as the out-breath, that's called one even breath. And when you can do that, then the prana becomes still. Body, prana becomes still. Now I've got my old adversary, see, the mind, who gave rise to the prana, who gave rise to the body. Everything came out of the mind. Mind-only school. See, that's Vedanta, that's Buddhism, that's yoga. Mind-only schools. They believe that the mind is everything, that the mind is the author of the universe, that God had nothing to do with creation. The mind is projecting everything. Now, if I can get my mind to quit projecting and quit withdrawing, then I can become still. And then I've realized avikaryaha. Avikaryaha, karma, kara, cause and action. I can still the mind, which is the source of all activity. Isn't thought father to the deed? There are some good wisdom sayings in the West, you know. It's not just like a stitch in time saves 9. What a stupid saying. Does it really save 9? You never know. You know, but there are some good Western sayings. Thought is father to the deed. That's very yogic. So then it's the source of all karma, the mind. It causes action. So what if it became inactive for a certain period of time? Then maybe it could destroy those karmas. So then with body set, Krishna says in the Gita, with the senses turned down and turned within, with the breath still, sitting on your asana, not too high, not too low, in a pleasant place, still the breath, and turn off the senses and go within. Concentrate the energy in the mind and the concentration in the heart, and become stable and become still. And hold that for a while. And then see how all the worlds of name and form have come out of you via your own knowledge, through your own intelligence. But if you lost possession of that, see, then it began to run like a dog or a wolf, just loping and loping. It began to run and project and take itself out. See? Now draw it back in and still, sattva, quiet, peace, shanti. And make thine eye single and know the truth, that you are ever stable, that you are avikaryaha, you're inactive, that you are nityaha, absolute, that on the 4th day of Christmas you are immovable, that on the 3rd day of Christmas you are ancient, on the 2nd day of Christmas, Krishna, you are absolute, and that you are always eternal. And as we went on, we saw that you were also shashvataha, immutable. The I, the everything else is based on, in transformation, only the Atman is immutable. Want of all change is Atman. Good description for the Atman. It's the want of all change. You're looking for change and you can't find any in it. See? It's immutable. Everything else is mutable. From the infinite, the finite has come. But being infinite, only infinite remains. The same with God. From this immutable, the mutable has come. But being immutable, only the immutable remains. Changelessness is the foundation of everything. So change may bring you excitement. Change may bring you happiness. Change may bring you joy. But changelessness brings you bliss. And there is no opposite to bliss. Happiness has an opposite. Sorrow. Joy has an opposite. Grief. Bliss has no opposite. Once you have it for all times. It's your true nature. That's why they call God Sat Chit Ananda. One of the most profound and long-lasting names in all of religion and philosophy. In fact, it had an even more ancient version, Astabhati Priya. Astabhati Priya. It is existence, it is light, bhati, and it is priya, the most dear of all things, precious. Later, Satchitananda. It is existence, it is non-dual wisdom, and it is bliss. So schools used to get together. No, wait, I'd say God is existence. No, I'd say God is intelligence, wisdom. No, I'd say God is bliss and love. Guess what? Let's put them all three together. It's three mints in one. It's a triputi of the most profound ramification. It's existence, knowledge, and bliss. So there are no opposites to those kinds of things. If you were to say, I would discriminate away everything. But you can never discriminate away the one who's doing the discrimination. So if I meditate on existence and non-existence, I'll find out that there's a supreme existence. Because I'm the one that's meditating on the existence of non-existence. If a person comes to me who believes that they have no birth after death, that they have no life after death, and that everything is just a void, then I have to tell them, you must avoid the void. Because you were the one that named the void. You were the one that was looking on when the void got a name and when it got a form. See? So, voidism should be avoided. Nihilism should be annihilated. There is just one consciousness, and it's there existing in everything. The idea then is that it's immutable. It's also avyaktaha, unmanifest. The great Advaitin, who was Shankara's teacher's teacher, Gaudapada, said, name, form, and function differ, but akasha, which holds them, remains unchanged. Similarly, Atman is unaffected by Maya projections, called individual souls. Who or what could possibly produce the Atman? It's anterior to life and mind. Life, mind, produced everything, see. But what was anterior to life and mind is this Atman, and it's unmanifested. You can never see, taste, touch, hear, and smell it. It's not an energy. It cannot be thought of. It's unthought. It has to be realized beyond the mind. So you'll use your intelligence to do that. Avyaktaha. It's avyayam. It's inexhaustible. Svetashvatara Upanishad, echoing Sri Krishna's teaching in the Gita, says, with hands and feet everywhere, with eyes, heads, mouths, and ears everywhere, that exists, pervading everything. So it's all pervasive too. So it doesn't have to be seen as beyond the senses. It can be said to be the nature of what the senses operate under. It's not the mind, but it's everything that the mind cognizes, and it's the power that the mind uses to cognize everything. That's it. See? You have to pinpoint it. You have to put your thumb on it. Somehow you have to make it known to yourself. If it's stable, then you have to become stable and identify it as being stable. You cannot identify it if you're unstable. If you're always shifting, how are you ever going to see the thing that's unshifting? You have to stop yourself, stop shifting, and then you can see it. If three trains are going along next to each other, and one's going slower and one's going faster, you're never going to know that those two are moving unless you're on the train that stopped. See? That's one of the proofs of Purusha, the soul. There are 9 proofs to Purusha according to Yoga and Samkhya, and that's one of them. Everything that's unstable and moving is only cognized and understood by that which is stable and unmoving. Otherwise you'll never know. That's why Buddha gave the teaching of the river toward the end. I have to get out on the banks, don't I? Because I'm always going around in the river. I'm always moving with everything, so I never know that everything is cyclic. That time is cyclic, that space is cyclic, that karma is cyclic, that lifetimes are cyclic, that worlds are cyclic, that cycles go on inside of cycles. See? That there are many, many wheels, chakras moving constantly. And I should be the one that's standing back from those wheels, watching them move. So I have to get out of the river and be stable and still so that the same thing comes around and I'll know everything's cyclic. If you're dealing with time and you're a great soul and you realize yourself to be timeless, akala, then when you get out of the body and you leave the wheel of time, where the ancestors, the gods and goddesses, the rishis, the trinity, the humans, the insects and the animals are all revolving in different akashas, as he says here, the akasha that holds everything, then you're going to see time appears to be linear, going in a long, straight line, like history to us seems to be linear. There's a past, there's a present, there's a future. So we don't understand yet the eternal moment. We only understand past, present, and future. And people are mistaking the present for the eternal. So I live in the present. Present means each day I'm enjoying things. That's what the present means. You're not eternal at all. You're just the enjoyer of experiences. So you're still caught in the 3 states of enjoyer and enjoyment and lack of enjoyment. So if you get out of time and you watch it, it seems like it's going linear, but if you get into a timeless space, you can see, just like you're up high in a plane, how the world begins to curve, right? So you know it's not flat anymore because you're in such a high elevated position. Same with time. If you get outside of time and you watch it, you can see where time seems linear, and then all of a sudden it has an arc. And as it begins to bend, you follow it and you watch it and you observe it over from this timeless position, and you can see it come back and cycle like that. So you see that time also is cyclic. Might as well be illusory, just like a circle has no end. Right? So time, that's how Buddha described it, time in the river. So you get out on the banks and you see that it's all cyclic. And then you want out of it. The greatest of all realizations for Buddha and for Krishna and for Christ in the wilderness was separating themselves from nature. It's not a popular concept. We want to run towards nature. Because nature is form. Nature is the power of form. The name comes later, see, for most people. Oh, I'm going to take a form yet, and then I'll name myself, you see. But the nameless and formless reality disagrees. Says, basically, you want Kaivalya, to separate yourself from name and form. And after name and form comes time and space. So you're going to want to cut time down and render space all-pervasive. So name, form, time, and space give rise to karma, cause and effect. That is, you're going to be creating karma when time passes and when you have a world in which to do action, then karma will settle on you. So name, form, time, space, and causation, these are the quintuplication process of philosophy. And when you study them, you find you want out of them. You find out that they're a great net that have trapped you. And so if you want to say the greatest of all beings, Lord Buddha, father of yoga, Patanjali, Christ in the wilderness, Muhammad on the mountain, Moses, these beings saw and began to see that they could transcend, and they wanted outside of nature, transcendent of nature. It's called Kaivalya. There's a beautiful Sanskrit word for it called Kaivalya. It means isolation. Isolation from time, space, name, form, and karma. And that would be returning to your true nature called Atman. Or they could call it nirvana, or nirvikalpa, or asampragyata, or samadhi, or satori, or Kaivalya. We all talk a lot about enlightenment, but when we see how much work it takes, and then we see what it entails, we say, well, maybe I don't want that. Maybe I really want name and form and time and space based on causation. So I think I'll go back to that. I'm not ready to get enlightened yet. I'm not ready to be enlightened, or to realize that I'm always enlightened. Because that would mean some very strong words. That would mean I'd have to realize that I'm unborn, stable, absolute, ancient, immovable, eternal, inactive, immutable, unmanifested, inexhaustible. And the final three here before we take our break. I am indestructible, avinashi. I am sarvagataha, all-pervasive, and I'm achintyaha, incomprehensible. In other words, if I say avinashi, which is the name of one of my students who wrote to me recently about an awakening he had. I got an email from him yesterday, and he said, I just realized that I need to get out of form. I need to get away from nature. I need to transcend nature in order to get enlightened. It hasn't ever occurred to me until just now. So, avinashi means indestructible. The Sarva Upanishad says, that which when name, space, time, substance, and causation are destroyed, dies not. That is the indestructible. What were we just talking about? Name, space, time, adds in substance here, and causation, karma. When those five things are destroyed and it doesn't die, that's it. Or one of the greatest questions ever asked in all of the spiritual circles of the world, one student said, teach me that one thing by which knowing all else is known. Well, philosophically put, that's when I see that time, space, name, form, and causation all pass away, but that one indestructible thing remains, then I know God. And all of these great Sanskrit words, Sanskrit's called the language of the gods, by the way, because it was always used to realize God. It wasn't used to make money. It wasn't used to get famous. It wasn't used to explain away the existence of God, but always to explain that God is existence. So that great language has words. We have to scramble to find words. What's a word for the reason why I'm reborn? Karma? Doesn't cut it. Samskara is the word. It means a whole grooves that I ran into my mind over lifetimes that caused me to think certain ways when I was born, that caused one person to be a genius and another person to be a fool, caused one person to be an athlete and another person to be a paraplegic. Those are called samskaras in my mind, and I've been blaming God and devil for them for lifetimes, but basically it was my own doing. I ran them into my mind, and it's called a samskara. Now the closest thing you can find for that in our Western psychology is complex. I have a complex. But I can tell you, friends, and I've looked into it, that Freud and Jung did not think outside the box. They did not believe in a many lifetime scenario. They're European folk. They never had a Hindu man on their therapy table saying, oh, Mr. Jung, I beg to differ. I was born many times, and so are you. I know my lifetimes, but you don't. You're still thinking inside the box of one lifetime. How's the psychology going to make any sense? Of course you're going to be blaming it on God and devil, because one person was born good and another person was born bad. Or one race was the chosen race and the other race was the cursed race. You're thinking all wrong. This is all your own doing. It goes back many lifetimes, based on your samskaras. Samskara, what's that word? It means mental impressions. If a camel eats thorny bushes, then why do you think he's going to come back as a camel again? Because he has a thirst for thorny bushes. He loves the taste of thorny bushes. So that's why there's so many camels being born. And so many cows, because they love the green. They eat the green every day. As my mother-in-law says, they eat the green. Dogs eat the green too. And why do humans come back? Because based on those desires, but those desires are based on samskaras. So if you want to change yourself, change your human nature into divine nature, then you're going to have to look into your samskaras and neutralize them. That's what happened when Dalai Lama had his first bodhisattva. 14 lifetimes ago. Must have been a soul who destroyed his samskaras, neutralized his karmas, and became a bodhisattva. I'm free now. I have the state of Kaivalya now. I've isolated myself from name, form, time, space, and causation. And might as well add in here what he adds in here, substance. What is substance? It means the presumed substance that's in the object that I get attached to. But now my science is beginning to tell me, oh, there is no substance in the object. It's just a bunch of swirling particles. But there's some unseen force that holds it together. Let's call it love, for lack of a better word. Or we could call it the congealing power of the atom. Or we could call it prana, or we could call it shakti, or we could call it divine reality, that which is the underlying substratum beneath object. So God is in all things, but it's not a thing. God pervades all objects, but it's not an object. It's an eternal subject. And you have to meditate on that eternal subject. You have to become like that eternal subject, because that's who you are, the eternal subject. So don't run away from your true nature. Always run towards it. penultimate here is Sarvagataha. It's all-pervading. Lord Vashishta, one of the ancient rishis, one of the mind-born sons of Lord Brahma, one of the 10 Manus, he says, Atman alone is. It is the all-full and blissful consciousness pervading everything. It is the immaculate wisdom itself, Jnanam, the all-pervading Akasha. 3 worlds arise in it, yet they do not affect its true state. So the 3 worlds are basically gross, subtle, and transcendent, or external, internal, and absolute, or waking, dreaming, and deep sleep. You can designate them by different things. Or the worlds of the humans, insects, and animals, the worlds of the ancestors, and the worlds of the gods and goddesses. 3 worlds they often call them. And sometimes they break them down into 7. Or you could call them Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha. You know the Gayatri Mantra? Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha. Those are the 3 worlds. They're the worlds of transmigration. If you transcend them, you don't come back anymore into the body. Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, then Jnana, Tapa, Jnana, Tapa, Mahar, Loka, and Brahma Loka. Those are the 7 worlds now. 4 upper worlds. You'll transcend physical birth if you can get beyond Bhur, Bhuva, Swaha, which basically means earth, lower heaven, and higher heaven, if you want to put it that way. But you're the all-pervading one. You're the immaculate wisdom itself that created the worlds. You are the all-pervading Akasha, that is the Chiddakasha, the Akasha of spirit, the space of pure spirit. That thou art. That thou art. That thou art. And finally, it's incomprehensible. So why am I speaking so much about it? It's achintyaha. The Upanishad says, Atman, hidden in all beings, reveals itself not to all, but only to the seers via their honed and subtle intellect. So Buddha was named after the intellect. Vedanta covets the intellect, intelligence above all things. Krishna in the Gita, does he really pronounce love to be the highest philosophy? The highest philosophy is intelligence. He says, nahi gyanena sudrishyam pavitram miha vidyate. Of all the purifiers in the world, Arjuna, know that knowledge is the highest and best. So he seems to say, if you really want to know what love is, then you should purify your mind with knowledge. Then love will become revealed to you. In the meantime, it seems like we're loving God in all the wrong places, looking for God in all the wrong things, and suffering the consequences. Our love is being misdirected and misguided. Purify your mind, get rid of its ignorance first with knowledge, and then you'll know what love is. Love will be then to you the ultimate thing, that it'll be true love. And you'll have devotion not just to some form, to some ishtam, to some ideal, but you'll have devotion to discrimination between the real and the unreal. You won't be taking any wooden nickels anymore, I'm going to put it simply. No more imitations, no more pretenders to the throne of your heart. So this has been a rather long first half of the class because it took up in its sweep the 13 inherent characteristics of Atman. We hear the word all the time. This class should tell us without any doubt what the Atman consists of, what it's the best words to think about it. Our true nature, it describes it best of all here in this beautiful 13 characteristics. So here we will take our break and come back in 10 minutes and finish up.
Sham.